Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Adkup Show. A psychological operation, or PSYOP, is a planned and strategic effort to influence the perceptions, emotions, attitude, and behaviors of a target audience, whether individuals, groups, or the entire population, using psychological tactics. PSYOPs aim to achieve specific objectives, often in military, political, or ideological contexts, by shaping how people think and act without necessarily relying on physical force. And this is exactly what is happening with the world's most populous country, India. Indians need to stop falling in the psyops and propaganda which is unleashed upon them. A couple of days ago, one post or probably reply went viral on Indian X. It was written by a professor from Hebrew University in Israel. It stated, and I quote, "After Iran's campaign, we may seek to dismantle Pakistan's nuclear program." Now, this might sound very nice to Indians, as India has long-standing rivalry with Pakistan. However, it doesn't really look genuine. There were many such posts made where it was showed that Israel is concerned about Pakistan's nuclear arsenal. And not just that, there was one old video of Bibi Netanyahu which went viral where he was talking about stopping and dismantling Islamist countries from gaining nuclear arsenals.
So that the greatest mission that we have is to prevent a militant Islamic regime from meeting up with nuclear weapons or from nuclear weapons meeting up with a militant Islamic regime. The first is called Iran, the second is called Pakistan. Because if these radical regimes have nuclear weapons, they will not obey the rules that have been obeyed in the last almost 7 decades.
Now, all this shows some sort of a behavior which looks very pro-India. And any person listening, reading, and watching from India will start becoming pro-Israel. However, all this looks as if it was manufactured for some purpose. Israel is already locked in a brutal war in the Middle East. Why it would want to open another front from Pakistan when Pakistan is not even in the Middle East, nor is showing any interest in taking any anti-Israel stance? Well, it looks like these anti-Pakistan messages are carefully crafted and released for a purpose. You know, when these messages were released, Asim Munir, who is Pakistan's military chief, was in White House having lunch with Donald Trump. And according to many reports, Pakistan is actively playing a critical role in Israel-Iran conflict. Pakistan is gathering information and data about Iranian military actions and supplying that data to America, and that data will be obviously passed on to Israel. Many reports also suggest that Pakistan might or probably already has given military base to the US from where the US military might attack Iran and carry out its military operation. Many even say that Israeli military personnel are also going to visit those bases. Situation is such that even Iranian ambassador to India is saying that Iran is hoping that Pakistan will be on their side. In order to hide and cover up this partnership, which is into play between the US, Israel, and Pakistan, these kind of anti-Pakistan messages are being promoted and probably planted among Indian masses. India is very important for the US and even for Israel. And to be fair, both countries enjoy good relationship with India, which might be changing in the future. So in order to maintain their positive influence in India, they are carrying out these influence operations on India to keep Indian masses away from seeing the reality. And Iran is one of the most important countries for India. It provides trade routes as well as oil to India. But the US and Israel don't like that. But they can't push India beyond a point. So in order to psychologically influence Indian masses, they launch these psyops and propaganda. The goal is not just to do cover-ups, but also to take India away from Iran, which is pretty much a good partner to India. The sad part about all this is that Indians are falling in this trap and supporting something which they shouldn't. Right now, the situation is not really good. Indians are unable to figure out these psyops and propaganda. Moreover, it's not just about doing cover-ups, but also using India and Indians as a shield to deflect. If you use social media, then you might have witnessed anti-India biases. These anti-India biases are carefully crafted to deflect people's attention. This is done through gray and black psyops. Gray psyops are the psyops where source is ambiguous or not explicitly identified, making it harder to trace the origin. Example, anonymous social media campaigns or unattributed propaganda videos. They are used to create plausible deniability while still influencing the audience. Black psyops are the psyops where the source is deliberately misrepresented or hidden. Example, false flag operations or fabricated news stories attributed to fake entity. It's often controversial due to ethical concerns and potential for deception. This is happening with India and Indians in real time, and it's really sad. There are countries and institutions which are influencing India in a wrong way for their own benefits. Indian government probably know about all this, but they don't actually stop these psyops and propaganda because it has good relationship with those countries and institutions at government level. Plus, those governments and institutions have big leverage over the Indian government. Unlike China, which has firewall, India has no such infrastructure. Hence, any kind of information and data can easily penetrate into India, and on top of that, India is a democracy which has freedom of expression. This gives external parties opportunity to carry out influence operations in India. Now, you might be thinking that why people don't educate each other and try to solve this problem. Well, in 2016, internet revolution happened in India, which led to Indians having access to cheap and fast internet. This connected and brought everyone on the same platform. But here's the catch. India is a low-income country and people aren't really educated enough to build right perception. And on top of that, the government isn't effective with these latest trends. Such population becomes easy target for influence operations from external parties. They are psyoped and propagandized to an extent that they get disconnected from the reality. Right now, psyop in India is at its peak. Propaganda, fear appeal, bandwagon effect, symbolism, you name it. Everything is happening with Indians thanks to cheap internet and government and states' ineffectiveness. Last year in August, there was a coup in Bangladesh which resulted in mass violence and destabilization. America was blamed for doing this, however, it denied its involvement, which was obvious. Minorities were butchered and cities ran into anarchy. Indians started blaming America, so in order to deflect this, a case of rape and murder of a female doctor was brought into light. Now, I'm not saying that people should not pay attention to crimes, but interestingly, after this case was reported in media, suddenly attention of all the Indians got diverted from Bangladesh, where situation was and probably is very bad. This was the perfect case of psyop and deflection. So now the big question is, how can someone not get psyoped and fall into this trap? To be honest, in case of India, it's very difficult because damage has already been done. The mainstream belief in India is corrupted and it will take a lot of time to reverse this. However, people need to slowly start seeing the reality by educating themselves. This doesn't have to do anything with politics. It's all about defending yourself and your community from becoming a victim and a commodity for foreign powers. To begin with, one must be able to identify the psyop. Psyops often exploit strong emotions like fear, anger, hope, pride, or guilt to bypass rational thinking. This kind of psyops are often overly dramatic or alarmist. Sources for information in it often remains unclear and people get carried away with the mainstream belief. At that moment, it's very difficult to go against the mainstream belief because emotions would be very high. Anything against would be easily discarded. In such scenario, one must look for details about main people involved in that event or environment. They should cushion the timing and point towards drastic shift in the mainstream narrative. Psyops use half-truth, cherry-picked data, or outright falsehoods to shape perceptions. They may omit context or distort facts to fit a narrative. This happens all the time with India. We often see how West purposefully gives half-baked knowledge about India. Those claims lack evidence and citing is done through dubious sources, example unverified blog posts or obscure studies. Information is presented without context, example statistics without a time frame or sample size. Once you suspect a psyop, resist the urge to act immediately, especially if the message evokes strong emotions. Ask yourself, why is this message trying to make me feel this way? What's the goal? Wait for a few hours or days to see if the information holds up or fades. Social media plays a very important role in psyops and propaganda. To be fair, nowadays the majority of psyops are done through social media. Fact of the matter is, Indians are probably the most vulnerable group on social media. They easily fall in the trap and get manipulated. Psyops through social media also lead to building of perceptions. People in India need to be more sophisticated when they interact with the world via social media. Their interaction is recorded and used as a psyop and propaganda tool to build perception. And most of the time, those perceptions aren't in India's favor. So you see, one can actually generate content for psyop from social media and use that content to generate more content. It's like a vicious cycle, which is controlled by external powers for gaining leverage over society and population. Now, it's very difficult for a country like India to rectify these mistakes. However, it can do a minimum by educating each other and looking at things from a neutral perspective, and then deciding whether to accept or reject it. I stated only a few examples, but there are many psyops which are happening at an industrial scale where people are getting manipulated. In conclusion, India is the world's most populous country where people have access to cheap internet, information, and data. This increases their responsibility as there is no firewall. People of India need to be more careful with the narratives they follow and set because there are psyops which are hurting India. One must always look into consequences of the actions, narrative, and trends which they are setting because that can be used against them. Blind support of Indians on social media for Israel has caused big decline in the image of India. If Indians think in a realistic manner, then they will realize that India has nothing to do with the conflict in the Middle East, and Iran is also a very important partner of India. This has nothing to do with politics but with rational thinking. If you found this brief analysis insightful, then like and subscribe. Share this video with your friends and family and stop them from falling into a trap. So what are the other examples of psyops? Let's keep the convo going in comments. This is Adkup Show signing off. Peace out.